Hi, I'm Diane Allen, and welcome to This Is Me, an online talk show dedicated to the 50-plus woman. February is Black History Month, and on today's show, I will be presenting a few of the many Black women from the past upon whose shoulders many of us stand today. Their achievements have helped pave the way and open doors for all women of color and women in general. We owe them our thanks and gratitude. I hope you enjoy the presentation. Claudette Colvin, born 1939. Before Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, there was a brave 15-year-old who chose not to sit in the back of the bus. That young girl was Claudette Colvin. Tooting her constitutional rights to remain seated near the middle of the vehicle, Colvin challenged the driver and was subsequently arrested. She was the first woman to be detained for her resistance. However, her story isn't nearly as well known as Rosa Parks. Dorothy Height, born 1912. Hailed as the godmother of the women's movement, Dorothy Height used her background in education and social work to advance women's rights. She was a leader in the Young Women's Christian Association and the president of the National Council of Negro Women for more than 40 years. She was also among the few women present at the 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Betsy Coleman, born 1892. Despite being the first licensed black pilot in the world, Betsy Coleman wasn't recognized as a pioneer in aviation until after her death. Though history has favored Amelia Earhart and the Wright brothers, Coleman, who went to flight school in France in 1919, paved the way for a new generation of diverse flyers like the Tuskegee Airmen, Blackbirds, and the Flying Hobos. Ethel Waters, born 1896. Ethel Waters first entered the entertainment business in the 1920s as a blues singer, but she made history for her work in television. In addition to becoming the first Black American to star in her own TV show in 1939, The Ethel Waters Show, she was nominated for her first Emmy in 1962. Gwendolyn Brooks, born 1917. Today, Gwendolyn Brooks is considered to be one of the most revered poets of the 20th century. She was the first Black author to win the Pulitzer Prize in 1950 for Annie Allen. She served as poetry consultant for the Library of Congress, becoming the first Black woman to hold that position. She was also the poet laureate of the state of Illinois, and many of her works reflected the political and social landscape of the 1960s, including the civil rights movement and the economic climate. Alice Coachman, born 1923. Growing up in Albany, Georgia, Alice Coachman, the soon-to-be track star, got an early start running on dirt roads and jumping over makeshift hurdles. She became the first Black American woman from any country to win an Olympic gold medal at the 1948 Summer Olympics in London. She set the record for the high jump at the Games, leaping to 5 feet 6 1/8 inches. Throughout her athletic career, she won 34 titles, 10 of which were in the high jump. She was officially inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1975 and the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame in 2004. Jane Bolin, born 1908. A pioneer in law, Jane Bolin was the first Black woman to attend Yale Law School in 1931. In 1939, she became the first Black female judge in the United States, where she served for 10 years. One of her significant contributions throughout her career was working with private employers to hire people based on their skills, as opposed to discriminating against them because of their race. She also served on the boards of the NAACP, Child Welfare League of America, and the Neighborhood Children's Center. Maria P. Williams, born 1866. Thanks to the early accomplishments of Maria P. Williams as the first black woman to produce, write, and act in her own movie in 1923, The Flames of Wrath, we have female directors and producers like Oprah, Ava DuVernay, and Shonda Rhimes. Beyond films, the former Kansas teacher was also an activist and detailed her leadership skills in the book she authored, My Work and Public Sentiment, in 1916. Minnie Riperton, born 1947. Mariah Carey is heralded for her whistle register, which is the highest a human voice is capable of reaching. But Minnie Riperton perfected the singing technique years before and was best known for her 5-octave vocal range. The whistling can be heard on her biggest hit to date, Loving You. This infectious ballad was originally created as an ode to her daughter, Maya Randolph, of the Bridesmaids and Saturday Night Live fame. However, before she could become a household name, she died in 1979 at the age of 31 from breast cancer. Ruby Bridges, born in 1954. Bridges probably had no idea that the bold act she committed in 1960 would set off a chain reaction leading to the integration of schools in the South. She was just 6 years old when she became the first Black American student to attend William Frantz Elementary in Louisiana at the height of desegregation. She is now the chair of the Ruby Bridges Foundation, which was formed in 1999 to promote the values of tolerance, respect, and appreciation of all differences. Marian Anderson, born 1897. Though she's considered one of the greatest contralto singers in the world, Marian Anderson was often denied the opportunity to show off her unique vocal range because of her race. However, things started to change in 1957 when she went on a 12-nation tour sponsored by the Department of State and the American National Theater and Academy. She documented the experience in her biography called My Lord, What a Morning. In 1963, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Her last major accomplishment before her death was receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys in 1991. Phyllis Wheatley, born 1754. The West African-born poet spent most of her life enslaved, working for John Wheatley and his wife as a servant in the mid-1700s. Despite never having received a formal education, Phyllis Wheatley became the first Black American and the third woman to publish a book of poems entitled Poems on Various Subjects. However, she died before securing a publisher for her second volume of poetry and letters. You can see the monument erected for her at the Boston Women's Memorial. Ella Baker, born 1903. Baker was an essential activist during the Civil Rights Movement. She was a field secretary and branch director for the NAACP, and also co-founded an organization that raised money to fight Jim Crow laws. Additionally, Ella Baker was a key organizer for Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But what was perhaps her biggest contribution to the movement was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which prioritized nonviolent protests, assisted in organizing the 1961 Freedom Rides, and aided in registering black voters. The Ella Baker Center for Human Rights exists today to carry on her legacy. Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, born 1831. Rebecca Lee Crumpler was the first black female doctor in the United States. After attending the prestigious Massachusetts private school, West Newton English and Classical School, she worked as a nurse for 8 years until applying to medical school and would go on to graduate 4 years later. Though little is known of her career, PBS reported that she worked as a physician for the Freedoms Bureau for the state of Virginia. She later practiced in Boston's predominantly black neighborhood at that time, Beacon Hill, and published a book of medical discourses in 2 parts. Mahalia Jackson, born 1911. Mahalia Jackson was an American gospel singer, widely considered one of the most influential vocalists of the 20th century. With a career spanning 40 years, Jackson was integral to the development and spread of gospel blues in black churches throughout the U.S. During a time when racial segregation was pervasive in American society, she met considerable and unexpected success in a recording career, selling an estimated 22 million records and performing in front of integrated and secular audiences in concert halls around the world. The granddaughter of slaves, Jackson was born and raised in poverty in New Orleans. She found a home in her church, leading to a lifelong dedication and singular purpose to deliver God's word through song. She moved to Chicago as an adolescent and joined the Johnson Singers, one of the earliest gospel groups. Jackson was heavily influenced by blues singer Bessie Smith, adopting her style to traditional Protestant hymns and contemporary songs. Nationwide recognition came to Jackson in 1947 with the release of Move On Up a Little Higher, selling 2 million copies and hitting the number 2 spot on Billboard's charts, both firsts for gospel music. Jackson's recordings captured the jazz fans of the U.S. and France, and she became the first gospel recording artist to tour Europe. She regularly appeared on television and radio and performed for many presidents and heads of state, including singing the national anthem at John F. Kennedy's inaugural ball in 1961. Motivated by her experiences living and touring in the South and integrating a Chicago neighborhood, she participated in the Civil Rights Movement, singing for fundraisers and at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. She was a vocal and loyal supporter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a personal friend of his family. Our history and contributions to America and beyond still continues to unfold as we are still making history as Black women. We honor all past and present women of color who are striving to make a difference not just in America but in the world. I'm Diane Allen and this is me. If you like today's show, please hit the like button and share it. Also, hit the notification bell for alerts for upcoming segments. And please subscribe to my channel. And feel free to leave a comment about today's show, along with any suggestion and ideas for upcoming shows.